Would you risk everything for love, even if it means diving into a world of danger? The room was drenched in shadow, pierced only by the cold glare of fluorescent overheads that hummed with sterile indifference. Sophia stood rigid at the head of the conference table, her heart hammering as the final words echoed around the spacious, glass-walled office. The polished mahogany surface reflected the disapproving glances from the panel of executives, their faces etched with skepticism and impatience. Her proposal, a lifeline to her dreams, had been dissected and dismissed with curt phrases: inexperience, too risky, not aligned with the firm's vision. Her jaw tightened, the sting of rejection biting deep, sharper than the winter wind that seeped through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Outside, New York's relentless pace pressed in distant sirens, murmurs of traffic, the restless pulse of a city alive with secrets. Yet inside here, time seemed to falter, compressing into a suffocating moment where ambitions collided with cold reality. Sophia's piercing green eyes flickered with a mix of disbelief and raw humiliation. She forced herself to meet the gaze of her senior partner, whose raised eyebrow was a silent verdict. The weight of countless nights, of designs and dreams poured onto unyielding pages, seemed dismissed as casually as a discarded blueprint. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and stale coffee, but what clung most was the bitter tang of disillusionment. Her hands, encased in the sleek fabric of her tailored blazer, clenched at her sides, fingernails biting into palms she barely noticed. A voice, cold and final, shattered the silence. "Thank you, Sophia. We'll take your proposal under advisement." The words hung hollow, a facade for dismissal. She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat, nerves crackling under her skin like frayed wires. Her mind, a whirlwind of doubt and defiance, fought to process the sting. As she gathered her papers, a quiet murmur floated through the room, a blend of polite whispers and stifled chuckles. Sophia's skin tightened, heat spreading from embarrassment into a flush that burned against her pale complexion. Steeling her spine, she made her way toward the door, footsteps echoing off the pristine marble. The mirror in the hallway betrayed her reflection fragmented across broken shards, symbolizing the fracturing of her confidence and identity. Outside the building, the city swallowed her amidst a cascade of cold wind and hurried footsteps, the faceless crowd indifferent to her silent turmoil. The distant glow of neon signs flickered against the wet pavement, casting fractured lights that mirrored the shards of her resolve. As she paused beneath the flickering street lamp, a single red rose, crushed and forgotten on the concrete, caught her gaze, a fiery splash against the grayness. In that small, vivid moment, a quiet determination flickered, fragile but unyielding. Her breath, visible in the chilled night air, spiraled into darkness, a whispered vow not just to survive but to rise. And as the city's heartbeat pulsed around her, Sophia disappeared into the shadows, the promise of her untold story echoing beneath the restless sky. The chill of the office hallway clung to Sophia's skin as she stepped out, the din of muted conversations and clicking heels fading behind her like a closing door. The weight of rejection settled heavily on her, tightening like a vice around her chest, constricting the breath that fought against the sting of every doubting glance and silent judgment she'd felt inside the glass-walled meeting room. She paused beneath the neon glow of the elevator's flickering panel, fingers clenched so tight the skin whitened, nails sinking into the flesh beneath like a desperate anchor. Her reflection in the polished steel was fractured, her piercing green eyes betrayed a storm of frustration, pain, and a desperate, unyielding need to be seen beyond the labels of inexperienced and naive. Outside, the city's hum was a distant symphony of sirens and car horns, neon signs dancing in puddles slicked by recent rain. The sharp contrast between the city's restless energy and her own inner turmoil sharpened the ache of insignificance gnawing at her resolve. Yet beneath the shadows stirring in her eyes, a spark small and fragile kindled, hinting at a fire waiting to be stoked. Her designer heels clicked steadily against the pavement as Sophia wove through the crowded streets, each step a hesitant defiance against the curving tide of doubt. The sharp scent of roasted chestnuts mingled with the cold air, a bittersweet reminder of warmth lost and sought. In the quiet solitude of her loft apartment, she leaned against the cracked plaster wall, fingertips brushing absent-mindedly over the jagged fissuria mirror to the fracture within herself. The broken reflection staring back was one of fierce ambition dulled by whispered dismissal and the eroding fear of betrayal. The space around her was sparse yet charged minimalist lines, cool grays punctuated by a lone red rose in a simple vase, vivid and defiant. Its petals whispered secrets of passion and resilience, a silent promise amid the suffocating stillness. Sophia's breath hitched, the sound barely a murmur in the vast, empty room. "I am more," she whispered to the haunting silence, voice threading through shadows with trembling conviction. Her fingers found a worn leather-bound notebook tucked away in a neglected corner, its cover tired but enigmatic. She opened it, and as the pages rustled beneath her touch, a faded sketch of an ancient key emerged from the faded Inca symbol entwined with mystery and unspoken truths, a delicate metaphor for unlocking barriers. The city beyond her window roared with life, neon lights flickering, distant sirens wailing, the pulse of danger and desire intertwined. In that moment, the fractured mirror in the corner caught a shiver of early dawn, a sliver of light cutting through ragged glass, illuminating the red rose's crimson heart with a fierce glow. Sophia's eyes lifted, shimmering with unspoken resolve. The night's rejection was but a threshold, a bitter seed nourishing the growing roots of something fierce and unrelenting. And somewhere deep within, beneath the crushing weight of doubt, the first steady heartbeats of rebellion began to echo, quiet, resolute, and full of promise. The afternoon light, muted and heavy with the promise of rain, filtered weakly through the half-closed blinds of Sophia's apartment. The room was cluttered with discarded blueprints and paint swatches, a testament to dreams both nurtured and neglected. The faint scent of fresh paint mingled with the stale tang of cold coffee and the faint aroma of crushed red roses lingering from yesterday's unopened bouquet. Sophia stood before a cracked, aging wall where the faded wallpaper peeled like brittle petals. Her long fingers traced a quiet line where the plaster had crumbled, a forgotten fracture in the building's bonesand at the edge of peeling paint. Something glimmered briefly. Her breath caught. She reached beneath the chipped surface, fingers closing around the cold metal of an ancient key, its surface worn smooth by time, yet etched with an intricate design that seemed to pulse with silent secrets. This relic, hidden behind layers of wall and dust, felt like a heartbeat reaching across Ursa, whisper waiting to be heard. The soft click of the key in her hand resonated in the stillness, melding with the thrum of distant traffic and the faint murmur of rain pattering against the windowpane. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision as the room darkened, the fractured mirror hanging crooked on the adjacent wall catching flickers of light and distorting her reflection. Woman fragmented into countless shards, identity splintered between past failures and fragile hopes. Yet, within that broken reflection, her piercing green eyes remained, fierce and unyielding. Sophia's gaze hardened. The humiliation at work, the whispered doubts, these would not define her. She sank slowly to the floor, the ancient key resting in her palm like a talisman. Her fingers curled around it tightly, the metallic cold a sharp contrast to the warmth kindling within. Despite the ache trailing through her body, the bruises of rejection, the stirring of resolve swung like a pendulum between anger and determination. Outside, a single red rose petal fluttered past the window, settling gently on the sill. It was a stark slash of color against the muted cityscape, a symbol of passion unspoken and challenges yet to come. Sophia inhaled deeply, the faint scent of rose and rain mingling with the stale air, pulling her toward a destiny tangled with danger and desire. She rose slowly, the rising wind tugging at her dark hair, the apartment's dim light giving way to a gathering dusk rich with shadows and promises. The key was no longer just an object but a summons, a fragile thread weaving her into a narrative as ancient as the city itself. Beneath the fractured mirror and flickering streetlights, Sophia's fingers tightened their grasp. The past had found her. And with it, the first flickers of a dangerous, forbidden future. The echo of her footsteps faded into the deepening night as she stepped into the unknown, the city holding its breath, a silent witness to a story about to unfold, where love and peril lay entwined beyond every glowing window and shadowed alley. The relentless rain painted the city dark, each drop a cold needle against the bright lights of Manhattan's ceaseless pulse. Sophia stood beneath the worn awning of a narrow bookstore, the ancient key cradled in her palm like a fragile promise. The jagged roar of traffic mingled with distant sirens, weaving a frantic urban symphony. Around her, the world blurred beneath the torrent, yet inside her chest, a new rhythm began to beat, tentative, fierce. Her fingers traced the key's worn grooves, the cold metal slick with rain, its weight carrying secrets tangled in shadows and whispers. The veiled mystery of Victor's World One she had just glimpsed behind the fractured reflections of glass and power called to her. The first small victories at work, reinvigorated by stolen glances and whispered praise for her recent designs, hinted at a path beyond the humiliation of rejection. Sophia's heels clicked sharply on the rain-slicked pavement as she strode toward the back room of the bookstore, a sanctuary of dusty volumes and murmured confidences. The scent of old paper and ink was thick, a tactile reminder of stories both told and untold. Sliding the key into a heavy tome's broken spine, she found a faded article linking the ancient key to an infamous mob case of years past, a secret that twisted dangerously close to Victor's empire. "This can't be coincidence," she whispered into the dim light, voice low yet edged with a spark of resolve. Outside, thunder rumbled like a warning, the city's restless breath stirring the autumn leaves in chaotic whirlpools along darkened streets. Her hand brushed against the cracked mirror in her apartment, fragmented scenes of her own reflection scattering beneath splintered glass. The broken lens mirrored the fracturing of her own identity, ambition clashing with fear, passion torn between caution and reckless heartbeats. Each patch of reflection seemed to call out a truth: strength born in vulnerability, power forged in pain. During a late-night meeting at an upscale office, the air thick with the scent of expensive whiskey and fresh ink, Sophia's designs earned nods of approval, small but fierce. The head of the firm, a man with eyes like steel, finally offered a rare compliment: "You've got something. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." She exhaled sharply, the rush of validation reckless and sweet beneath the pressing tension. Yet beneath those moments blossomed uncertainty. Shadows lengthened as whispers of Victor's interest in her newfound possession carried unsettling weight. The ancient key wasn't just a relic. It was a beacon, drawing unblinking eyes and dangerous intentions. During a rain-soaked evening walk, the city lights fractured in her eyes like scattered jewels through tears. A red rose, freshly fallen from a nearby vendor's crate, came to rest at her feet. Stooping, she traced a finger over its sharp petals, a symbol of passion and peril entwined. "What are you hiding?" she whispered to the rain. The key in her pocket burned cold, icy yet alive, as if pulsing with secrets teasing the edges of her understanding. Behind her, a shadow detached itself from the alley's murk, a figure watching, waiting. The heartbeat of danger humming closer. Sophia's breath caught. The city's midnight chorus surged. Her journey had begun, a dance on the razor's edge between revelation and ruin. And the key in her grasp promised to unlock more than doors. It guarded the thin line between trust and betrayal, love and violence. The night hummed with unspoken threats as the city held its breath. Sophia stepped forward, unsure, fierce, alive. The dim glow of the city seeped into Sophia's apartment as dusk bled into night, draping the room in shadows and golds. The ancient key burned cold in the hollow of her palm, its weight heavier now not just from its metal but from the secrets it carried, secrets that had begun to twist and unravel beneath her fingers. The lines between her life and the shadowed world behind the key blurred. Every heartbeat thrummed with danger and desire. A sharp knock fractured the fragile quiet. Sophia's breath caught. The door slid open, revealing Victor's silhouette carved from shadows and power. His eyes, dark and fathomless, flickered with something unreadable as they landed on the key. That's quite the discovery, he murmured, a smile playing on his lips, charming yet guarded. Sophia stepped back, heart pounding. I didn't expect to see you here. He stepped inside, the scent of expensive cologne mingling with the city night. I hear you found something interesting. I could help you understand its value or its danger, Sophia interrupted, voice steady despite the swirling storm within. Victor's gaze softened, but the glint of something unreadable shimmered in his eyes. Careful with your choice of words, Sophia. In my world, curiosity can be as fatal as betrayal. The air thickened with tension, an electrifying fusion of risk and attraction. Sophia's fingers tightened on the key, this small object symbolizing a gateway to truths that could prove her worth or doom her entirely. In the following days, the city swallowed them both into a dance of hidden glances and whispered warnings. Sophia darted between boardrooms and clandestine meetings, each step a fragile balance between career ambitions and the growing, dangerous entanglement with Victor's world. At work, her designs garnered quiet nods of approval, small victories that felt like sparks in an encroaching darkness. Yet with every success came whispers, quiet accusatory currents undermining her at the margins. She stood at the window of her apartment late one evening, rain tapping a frenetic rhythm against the glass. The broken mirror caught slivers of pale moonlight, fracturing her reflection into shards, a kaleidoscope of fractured identity blending ambition with fear. Victor's visits increased, moments of tenderness laced with unspoken menace. His charm, a potent blend of protection and peril, both shielded and threatened her. Why do you trust me? Sophia's voice barely a whisper, eyes fierce in the low light. Victor's smile faltered for the first time. Perhaps because I see what others won't or can't. You're stronger than you believe. And you're not alone anymore. But shadows lingered. Late one night, from the depths of the city's underbelly, whispers swirled of old rivalries and fresh betrayals, whispers that reached Sophie's ears through fractured conversations and coded warnings. Confronted by neighbors' glances growing colder, whispers rising louder, and friends' calls going unanswered, Sophia's resolve both faltered and hardened. On a rain-soaked street, as she clutched the red rose Victor left behind, a fiery symbol of the dangerous love blooming between them, a sudden, sharp sound shattered the fragile moment. A gunshot echoed off the wet alleys, splintering the night's fragile calm. Sophia's heart lurched as footsteps vanished into darkness, the city holding its breath with her. The key in her pocket grew impossibly heavy, the stakes impossibly high. And beneath the fractured city lights, Sophia understood with chilling clarity, the next move could either shatter her world or rewrite it completely. The night wrapped the city in thick velvet as Sophia sat alone in her apartment, the ancient key resting heavily on the sleek surface of her glass coffee table. The room around her was bathed in shadows, pierced only by the intermittent glow of passing headlights from the streets below. The broken mirror on the wall reflected distorted shards of her face, each crack a silent testament to the fractures inside, the self she struggled to hold intact. Her green eyes, usually sharp and resolute, flickered with fatigue and apprehension. The weight of betrayal bore down relentless life knowledge she'd gained, the dangerous truths lurking just beneath the surface, threatening to unravel everything she'd built, including her own sense of identity. Every whispered secret, every furtive glance she'd caught between Victor and his hidden world, was a jagged shard cutting deeper into her soul. She reached out, fingers trembling, and traced a finger along the scarred glass of the mirror, feeling the cold sting of brokenness. I don't know who to trust, she whispered, voice almost swallowed by the thick air. Her gaze shifted to the red rose pinned to the vase beside the mirror, petals dark and velvety yet stained with the faintest trace of wilting. It was the emblem of the passion that had only complicated her existence, a symbol entwined with danger and desire. Suddenly, a sharp knock startled her. The door creaked open, and Victor stepped in, his charismatic yet unreadable eyes fixed intently on her. "You've been searching," he said softly, taking a slow step closer. "The key isn't just an object, it's a weapon. And it could destroy everything. Sophia's breath caught, a storm of emotion crossing her face. "Are you warning me?" He smiled, a dangerous curve tinged with vulnerability. "I'm warning us both." Days blurred into nights, and the tension between them pulsed beneath every interaction. Their connection tangled with suspicion, desire, and unspoken fears. While Sophia's professional victories grew small but significant, the deeper she delved into the secrets held by the key, the more isolated she became. Friends grew distant, colleagues whispered at the peripheries, their skepticism sharpening into veiled threats. One night, while unraveling old case files linked to the key, Sophia uncovered the extent of Victor's shadowy dealings, proof that the man she felt drawn to was both protector and predator. The revelation struck her like a physical blow, the danger suddenly intimate and devastating. Her hands trembled as she held the incriminating evidence, mind racing with the impossible choices ahead: expose Victor and shatter her heart, or protect him and betray her ideals. Torn and haunted, she stood by the flickering street lamp beneath rain-streaked city streets, a red rose crushed in her palm, petals darkened by the cold night. In the distance, a lone siren waylaid a mournful lament, weaving through the labyrinth of alleys and penthouses, echoing the peril coursing through her veins. As the wind brushed her face, Sophia's lips formed a fragile vow, barely audible amidst the storm: "I will not be a pawn." The ancient key, heavy with secrets, burned against her skein, a torch lighting a path shadowed by love and betrayal. And somewhere beyond the city's restless heart, the game twisted anew, setting the stage for a reckoning that would test the limits of trust, desire, and survival. The rain pounded relentlessly against the grimy windows of Sophia's apartment, a steady, punishing drum that echoed the turmoil inside her chest. The cold seeped through the cracked panes, curling around her like a merciless shroud. She stood motionless in the center of the dim room, the scattered shards of a broken mirror reflecting fractured fragments of the woman who once held dreams fierce enough to reshape the city skyline. Her dark hair hung heavy, damp strands clinging to pallid skin. The vibrant green of her eyes, now dulled by sleepless nights, flickered weakly with a desperate hint of something lost. The red rose she'd pressed between the pages of a little black notebook wilted quietly on the cracked wooden floor, petals curling inward as if retreating from the cold. Around her, the apartment felt cavernous and empty. The walls closed in with oppressive silence, each tick of the clock echoing like a hammer blow. Outside, the city lights flickered erratically through the sleet, casting long, trembling shadows that crawled like specters along the walls. Sophia's fingers trembled, a faint echo of the strength that once propelled her forward. She reached out, slowly, to touch the ancient key she'd hidden behind the crumbling plaster of her wall. It rested cold in her palm, an unyielding reminder of the dangerous world she had unwittingly stepped into, a world that now threatened to consume every inch of her reality. The weight of isolation pressed down with suffocating force. Friends had drifted away like smoke, laughter from her once close circle now a bittersweet memory, replaced by whispered doubts and the heavy fog of betrayal. Even Victor, the enigmatic force who had captivated and confounded her, seemed a stranger veiled behind guarded smiles and secretive glances. A soft knock at the door startled her, but she didn't move. The sound lingered, a tentative promise or a threat she couldn't discern. The rain intensified, pounding rafters and flooding streets, drowning out everything but the tempest inside. "Why am I still holding on?" she whispered into the silence, voice fragile, lost. The broken mirror caught a jagged beam of light from the flickering street lamp, splintering her reflection into dozens of jagged pieces. Each shard showed a different face: the ambitious architect, the grieving woman, the captive caught between trust and treachery. Her breath hitched as thunder rolled low and distant, shaking the windows, rattling the fragile peace. In that cold, lonely storm, Sophia folded into herself, a silhouette swallowed by shadows, a heart cracking under the relentless pressure of fear and loss. The key grew heavy against her skin, the rose lay dying beneath her feet. The city held its breath, Watching a woman unravel into the darkened, the story teetered on the edge of collapse. And as the rain continued its unforgiving descent, so too did the fragile threads of hope slipping through her fingers like whispers lost to the wind. The night was a suffocating veil over the city, draping its labyrinth of streets and towering facades in a cloak of desolation. Sophia sat alone in her apartment, the only light a jagged sliver filtering past the cracked blinds, casting fractured shadows that danced across the walls like ghosts of forgotten dreams. Her breath was shallow, each inhale a fragile thread unraveling in the cold, stagnant air. The once vibrant reds of the rose lay crumpled on the floor, petals wilted, scattered, a muted echo of passion lost. Her hands, trembling and pale, unforgivingly traced the fractured scars of the broken mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. The shattered glass reflected a fragmented image of herself, shards flitting with every flicker of the pale illumination, an unrelenting reminder of the woman she once aspired to be and the one she now feared she'd become. Outside, the distant sounds of the city seemed swallowed by an all-encompassing silence, a silence that seeped through the walls, the windows, and into Sophia's core. The distant hum of traffic was a ghostly whisper, barely alive, and the wind bled cold through cracked window panes, its chill gnawing through layers of fabric and defenses. She clutched the ancient key tightly, the metal icy against her skin, grounding her in a reality that spun unsteadily. Each moment, each breath, was a battle against the void threatening to swallow her whole. The apartment felt endless and empty, every corner a hollow cavern echoing loneliness. The only movement came from the slow drip of rain against the glass, the rhythmic tapping like a cold metronome marking the descent into despair. Sophia's lips parted in a whispered murmur, half breath, half prayer. "I don't know anymore." The words dissolved instantly into the dense quiet, unanswered and weightless. Her emerald eyes flickered towards the broken mirror once more, locking on the solitary red petal stubbornly nesting among the shards, its fiery hue a poignant symbol of life clinging desperately amid ruin. The key slipped from her grasp, skittering across the floor with a hollow clatter that seemed to resonate through the stillness. Sophia sank to the ground, her silhouette curling into itself, merging with the shadows as tears traced silent trails down her cheeks, shimmering briefly before surrendering to the darkness. Time became fluid, moments bleeding indistinctly into one another, the boundaries dissolving in the heavy air. Every sound, every flicker of light pressed in like the weight of the world, compressing hope into an impossibly fragile thing. The city hummed late into the night, indifferent and distant, as Sophia's world contracted into a suffocating bubble of loss, isolation, and unbearable quiet. And in that crushing stillness, the faintest breath of surrender whispered across her lips, a fragile admission that the fight might be slipping away, fading like the dying ember of a once roaring fire. The shadows deepened. The light waned. The story held its breath. Sophia remained flattened beneath the weight of despair, poised on the edge of an abyss, where only silence awaited. The apartment was swallowed by night, the city skyline a distant collage of muted lights and piercing shadows. Sophia sat on the floor, knees drawn close, the fractured mirror beside her reflecting a shattered spectrum of her own fragile essence. Each fragment caught the faint glow of the room's solitary lamp, scattering her image into countless splinters of fractured identity mirroring the turmoil within. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of a single red rose wilted in a cracked vase nearby. Its petals, once vibrant, now curling and darkened at the edges, whispered secrets of love and sacrifice, shadows entwined with passion. Sophia's fingers trembled as they traced the cool metal of the ancient key resting on her lap. The weight of it felt different now, not a mere object of mystery, but a confessional, carrying burden and promise entwined. Her eyes, dark pools reflecting years of conflict, flickered with a quiet revelation. Outside, rain tapped a soft Morse code on the windowpane, a tender rhythm breaking through the oppressive silence. The city's distant hum faded into a lull, as if holding its breath. A faint sound, an old vinyl crackling from a neighbor's apartment, broke through the stillness. The melancholic tune swirled around her, stirring a memory buried beneath layers of fear and despair. Her lips parted, voice barely audible, "I'm still here." The broken mirror caught a shard of light from the street lamps. Within its fractured reflection, Sophia glimpsed herself not as a collection of broken pieces, but as a mosaic slowly coming together, the reach crack a testament to survival. She rose slowly, the key glinting softly in the low light, a fragile talisman signaling the first tentative step toward reclamation. With deliberate care, she opened the battered pages of a forgotten journal, the faded scribbles hinting at paths uncharted and truths yet to be unveiled. Her fingers caressed a passage marked with a crimson rose sketch, an unspoken clue, a promise of clarity amidst the chaos. Sophia's gaze lifted to the horizon visible beyond her rain-streaked window. The storm clouds parted just enough to let a sliver of pale moonlight spill into the darkness, illuminating the room with a subtle, celestial glow. Her breath steadied, heart quickening with a slow pulse of resolved courage. A whispered vow escaped her lips, soft yet resolute, "I will find the truth." The world outside held its breath, the city lights twinkling like distant stars, witnesses to the fragile spark igniting within. Sophia stood poised on the edge of transformation, her fractured self readying to reclaim its whole. And as the light deepened, so too did her determination, fragile but fierce, the dawn of a new beginning. The city's relentless night finally began to yield, a tentative wash of pale dawn leaking through the curtains of Sophia's apartment. The golden hues spilled softly across her face, a subtle warmth that contrasted the cool gray shadows clinging to the corners of the room. For the first time in weeks, the suffocating weight of despair loosened its grip, leaving behind a fragile breath of hope. Sophia sat by the cracked mirror she had once shunned, the fractured glass now catching the waking light like stained shards of a delicate stained glass window. Her eyes, sharp and fierce even amidst lingering wounds, traced the jagged lines, each one a silent testament to battles fought, failures endured, and the woman she was quietly becoming. The ancient key lay on the worn wooden table nearby, its cold surface catching the soft beams as if infused with new life. It felt less like a burden now and more like a beacon, a promise whispering through the silence that secrets held within might yet be wielded for justice rather than destruction. From the window, the city stirred a cacophony of muted honks, footsteps, distant sirens, all underscored by the gentle murmur of the awakening world. The red rose, pressed carefully between the pages of an open book, caught a single shaft of sunlight, its petals glowing with a passionate fire that seemed out of place yet perfectly fitting in the fragile dawn. "So much broken," Sophia whispered to herself, her voice low but steady. "But everything can be mended." A soft knock startled her, and Victor's silhouette loomed in the doorway, unexpected yet somehow inevitable. His eyes, usually cloaked in shadows and secrets, held a flicker of something new, vulnerability tempered by resolve. "I'm not here to fight," he said quietly, stepping into the room and closing the distance with careful steps. "Not anymore." Sophia's breath caught, the fragile tension between them now laced with unspoken possibility rather than threat. They stood together in the soft glow of rebirth-own fractured mirror, one ancient key, one red rose between them, symbols converging to mark a first step out of darkness. The city's pulse quickened outside, vibrant and alive. Inside, the silence broke as Sophia reached out, fingers brushing lightly against Victor's hand. "I'm beginning to believe," she murmured, voice barely more than a breath, "that we can change this story." And as the first true light spilled fully over the horizon, washing away the shadows piece by piece, Sophia knew the journey ahead was daunting, but that transformation, real and lasting, was finally within reach. The mirror reflected their joined hands, a tableau of tentative hope and fragile strength. Change was possible. But it was only just beginning. Sophia's eyes burned with quiet fire as she stepped into the dimly lit room, the ancient key clenched tightly in her hand, the cold metal a sharp contrast to the heat surging within her. Around her, shadows clung to opulent furnishings, but she moved forward with a determination that fractured the darkness, casting sharp angles of light and shadow across the walls and floor. The air thrummed with tension, a fragile baton poised between danger and revelation. Victor's voice echoed softly from a nearby room, rich with layered menace and unspoken truths. "You shouldn't have come here," it warned. Yet when he emerged, the usual armor of charm was pierced by the vulnerability she saw flicker in his eyes, an unexpected crack in his formidable facade. "I'm done hiding," Sophia said, voice unwavering, the pain and strength intertwined like the rose's crimson petals against her chest. "This ends tonight." Their eyes locked, two worlds clashing and converging, a dance of peril and passion written across the fractured mirror of their lives. Victor stepped closer, the scent of smoky leather and danger enveloping her. "And what will you do when the truth burns hotter than the lies?" The key in her palm pulsed with symbolic weight, a weapon and a shield. Sophia's fingers trembled only briefly before clenching, resolve replacing fear. "I'll face it," she declared, breath steadying against the storm roaring in her heart. Outside, the city's neon glow battled the creeping night, vibrant colors flickering like embers against the encompassing darkness. Suddenly, violent echoes erupted beyond the walls, a barrage of shouted threats and crashing glass, a reminder of enemies lurking in shadows, testing loyalties and fanning fears. Sophia's pulse quickened, yet her stance remained unyielding. The red rose lying crushed on the floor was mirrored by the red in her eyes, fiery and unbroken. In this crucible, passion and danger fused, forging a warrior not defined by past scars but by the unyielding heart beneath. Victor's hand reached out, hesitant yet sincere, brushing a stray lock of dark hair from her face, a gesture laden with complexities, both tender and fraught. "You've changed the game," he said quietly. "And maybe you've changed me." Sophia's lips curled in a fragile, resolute smile. "Then let's finish it on my terms." The room held its breath as an ancient clock chimed softly, echoing through the thick silence, a somber hymn to choices made and consequences looming. She turned toward the window, the city's pulse a vivid backdrop, the fractured mirror catching a sliver of rising sun beyond the concrete shadows. The shards shimmered like distant stars, a symbol of shattered pasts and emerging light. Sophia inhaled deeply, the first breath of dawn mingling with the night's fading shadows. The ancient key, a silent sentinel, rested solid amid her fingers, a promise that the future could be unlocked and secrets finally laid bare. In that arresting moment, fraught with peril and possibility, Sophia realized she was no longer running from fear but facing it head-on with passion, purpose, and a heart fiercely alive. And the city, teetering on the edge of dawn, pulsed with newfound hope, shadows retreating before the slow, relentless arcs of light. The red rose, battered but unbowed, caught the sun's first glow, a fiery emblem of love against all odds. And Sophia stood ready, renewed, determined, poised at the brink of a story rewritten by her courage. The dawn's light sliced through the city's towering spires, flooding Sophia's apartment with a golden radiance that warmed every fractured corner, turning the cracked mirror on her wall into a tapestry of shining reflections. Gone was the fragmented woman who had cowered beneath the weight of uncertainty, replaced now by a figure sculpted in strength and unyielding purpose. Her long dark hair caught the sunlight, cascading like a waterfall, her green eyes ablaze with quiet fire that spoke of battles won and truths uncovered. The ancient key, now polished by her relentless hands, lay proudly on the tablia, beacon forged from secrets, loyalty, and courage. With delicate reverence, Sophia lifted it, the metal cool and alive, as though pulsing with newfound meaning. The red rose beside it was not wilted but fresh, crimson and vivid, a symbol of passion endured, love risked, and danger faced without fear. Victor stood across the room, the man whose presence had woven chaos and desire through her life. His usual mask of charm was softened by vulnerability, eyes locked onto Sophia with a raw honesty that melted the brittle walls she had built. The room crackled with an electric tension that was no longer threat but promise. "Why?" Sophia asked softly, voice steady but trembling with the gravity of knowing. "Why would a man like you show such honesty now?" Victor stepped forward, closing the distance, his voice a low rumble of confession. "Because you see me, Sophia, not the shadows, not the myths, only the man I wish to be. And because this world," he gestured around, "needs truth, even if it's buried in blood and fire." Sophia's gaze never faltered as she moved toward him, the strength in her step echoing a newfound command over her fractured destiny. She reached out, her fingers brushing the edge of the broken mirror, then the cracks seemed to mend, shimmering briefly as if healing by her touch. It was not an erasure of the past but the embracing of Ida recognition that brokenness forged resilience. "I won't be your pawn," she declared, voice fierce. "I'm the architect of my own fate." Victor nodded, a smile touched with both admiration and relief. "Then we're allies, two forces strong enough to change the tide." Beyond the towering windows, the city awoke beneath a sky brushed with the softest hues of dawn. The skyline glittered, alive with possibility and the promise of redemption. Sophia's silhouette was a bold stroke against that glow, radiant, unwavering, transformed. She turned one last time to the key, her fingers curling around it like a talisman of victory. The room stretched spacious and bright, no longer heavy with hidden threats but alive with the glow of revelation. "For every secret," she whispered, "there is a key. And every key unlocks a new beginning." Her eyes lifted to meet Victor's, fierce and clear, a bond sealed in the crucible of fire and shadows. Together, they stood poised on the precipice, ready to confront the darkness not as victims but as champions. The city held its breath. The story was theirs to write now. And Sophia, reborn in light and love, was ready to seize it. The horizon shimmered with the tender hues of dawn, the city awakening beneath a sky brushed with pale pinks and golds. Emma stood quietly on the quiet overlook, her figure silhouetted against the gentle glow, a silhouette of peace and resolution. The tumult that had once raged within her chest now settled into a calm, a gentle acceptance of a journey that transformed her beyond recognition. Behind her, the city's towering spires and historic brick facades breathed in unison, their timeless silhouettes a testament to resilience. The aftermath of her tumultuous path, the stolen moments of danger, betrayal, and courage had woven a new fabric of strength within her own she finally claimed as her own. Her eyes, piercing and luminous, reflected not just the awakening city but her own awakening soul. She inhaled deeply, drawing in the cool, salty air that carried whispers of hope, mingling with memories of shadows dispelled and secrets unveiled. The ancient key, now resting securely in her palm, felt warm, inscribed with the weight of truth, passion, and the promise of beginning anew. A soft wind stirred her dark hair, caressing her face as if bestowing silent blessings upon Heron in spoken acknowledgement of the battles fought and the fears overcome. The fractured mirror in her apartment was long since replaced by a clear, unblemished glass, a mirror of the self she embraced whole and unbroken. The city below vibrated with quiet life. People hurried along in easy stride, unaware of the silent revolution that had stirred within the depths of its shadows, or of the woman standing at its edge, now fully alive, fully transformed. Sophia's fingertips brushed the code of the ancient key, her skin warm with the slow glow of dawn, an ember of hope glowing softly, inviting her forward. She turned from the horizon, her steps measured but unburdened, the air around her alive with promising possibilities. Her face, serene and steady, bore the subtle radiance of inner peace, a quiet testament to the strength released like a blossom in full bloom. Every shadow, every whisper, every secret she had uncovered had led her here to a place beyond fear, into the dawn of a truth she now understood. Love and courage are the real keys to awakening, keys to freedom. Beneath the calming sky, she took one final look at the city's awakening pulse, then gently released her hold on the trembling edge of the past, stepping forward into the gentle promise of a new day. A symbol of resiliency, a reflection of herself, waves of hope rippled outward, silent yet resonant, in perfect harmony with the awakening world around her. As dawn approached, a soft, golden light spilled across the city, casting long shadows that slowly retreated beneath the burgeoning warmth of possibility. Sophia stood overlooking the skyline from her apartment balcony, the cityscape a tapestry of hope woven into the waking day. Her reflection in the glass was no longer fractured. Instead, it glowed with an inner peace, a testament to the journey of love, loss, and redemption she had endured. The mirror that once symbolized her broken identity now reflected a woman reclaimed whole, resilient, and quietly powerful. The cracks had been mended not just physically, but within her soul. In her hand, the ancient key rested gently, its cool surface reassuring now as a relic of truth unlocked. Within her heart, memories of the tumultuous days, betrayals exposed, secrets unveiled, loyalties tested melded into a calm certainty. Love had forged a new understanding. That genuine connection demanded vulnerability, that strength was born from weakness, and that forgiveness redeemed even the darkest of shadows. Victor's presence was a distant echo, replaced by an unshakable resolve. Her eyes, piercing and deep as ever, carried a quiet dignity, embracing the uncertain future that stretched before her, now painted in soft hues of dawn. She stepped back from the balcony, her movements graceful, deliberate. The city below hummed with a gentle vitality, people rushing into new beginnings, their lives touched by the dawn of her transformation. Every street, every building echoed her silent victory. Love was the true key, and she held it firmly in her grasp. Approaching the mirror once more, her fingers brushed the surface with reverence, a symbolic gesture of acceptance and renewal. The fractured reflection had become a mosaic, each piece a story, each crack a lesson, each shard a testament to resilience. A delicate smile touched her lips as she whispered, "It's time to forge a new path." The city's heartbeat pulsated beneath her, vibrant, unyielding, and in that moment, she knew her story was only just beginning. Love had saved her, and in turn, she had saved love. The camera pulled back slowly, capturing her silhouette bathed in the rising sun, an emblem of hope and peace amid the swirling waves of her past and the calm that now held her future. The dawn unfurled across the horizon in a tapestry of soft gold and tender pinks, illuminating the city's skyline with a gentle yet unwavering glow. Sophia stood serene upon the balcony, the cool morning air brushing her face and tousling her hair, now streaked with silver that shimmered in the awakening light. Her figure, calm and resolute, was a silhouette of quiet strength, no longer haunted by shadows of doubt but radiating an inner peace that mirrored the rising sun. With a delicate hand, she brushed her fingertips across the cracked, repaired mirror in her apartment, the glass catching the first light of dawn like a prism of reborn hope. Its fractured surface, once a symbol of shattering and despair, reflected now a woman transformed, whole, resilient, and unafraid. The red rose resting beside it bloomed anew, radiant and vivid, its petals unfurled in a silent celebration of love and resilience regardless of wounds. The city below stretched in a hush, its streets stirring softly into movement as life expanded outward in quiet harmony. The shadows that had once loomed over her world, thick with danger and betrayal, had receded into memory. Now only echoes of past ordeals remained, mere whispers in the symphony of beginning anew. Sophia's gaze lingered on the horizon and the skyline that was both her birthplace and her battleground, and she felt the delicate weight of the ancient key pressed gently against her chest. It was no longer just an artifact-on emblem of secrets, passion, and her own awakening, but a testament to her journey from fear to courage. Her lips curved into a soft, knowing smile. The silent vow in her heart was clear. She would forge her destiny, guided not by shadows of doubt but by the luminous promise of hope and love. The world's quiet symphony played on as she stepped back inside, the door closing softly behind her. The fractured mirror, the crimson rose, and the ancient Kiel symbols of chaos and renewal remained bathed in dawn's gentle embrace, silent witnesses to her rebirth. In that moment of perfect stillness and serene acceptance, Sophia understood that her story was only just beginning, written anew in the light of dawn, a story of love, strength, and the enduring power of hope. What would you unlock if you found a mysterious key? Share your thoughts below.